Sir, you're under detention. It's 6:47 a.m., and I'm standing in my driveway, my coffee still hot, when two clowns in knockoff cop uniforms strut up with plastic zip ties. The scent of morning dew clashes with their budget cologne as they declare I'm being held for parking an unauthorized vehicle. My FBI-issued Ford F-150, sitting on my own property. These fools have no clue I've spent 15 years dismantling real criminals, drug lords, money launderers, corporate crooks, and now two fake cops in cheap polyester think they can cuff me with ties from a hardware store. They're in way over their heads. I casually reach for my wallet, my fingers grazing my authentic federal badge, as they struggle with their toy restraints like children playing pretend. What would you do if fake cops tried to arrest you in your own driveway? Share your thoughts below. Where are you tuning in from? I bet your HOA has some crazy tales too. Let me rewind and explain how I ended up with imposter cops in my driveway. I'm Marcus Donovan, and after 15 years chasing financial criminals for the FBI, I thought I'd found peace at Willowbrook Estates. A community of 47 homes, friendly neighbors, and an HOA that once charged a modest $45 a month for upkeep, emphasis on once. My Ford F-150 is modified, lifted, reinforced, with tinted windows. Nothing wild, just functional. When you're chasing money launderers through rural meth country, you need a truck that won't get bogged down. Its diesel engine purrs like a satisfied beast. After years in bland government said and screaming, fed, I wanted something ordinary. For 3 months, life was idyllic. Freshly mowed grass filled the air, sprinklers hummed across lawns at dawn, and neighbors actually greeted each other. I thought I'd left the chaos of undercover work behind. Then the HOA leadership changed, and Brenda Kensington slithered into control. Imagine every HOA nightmare stereotype. Then add bleached blonde hair and a superiority complex. Brenda sports oversized sunglasses like they're welded to her face, wields a clipboard like a scepter, and measures everything with the zeal of someone who peaked as a high school hall monitor. But here's the kicker: Brenda doesn't just lead the HOA, she owns Willowbrook Compliance Solutions, a company she hired to enforce HOA rules. And guess who's married to Deputy Sheriff Rick Kensington? Yep, Brenda's hitched to local law enforcement. The scheme was so blatant it almost insulted my intelligence. 3 weeks after she took over, a neon orange violation notice was tied to my mailbox. A $300 fine for parking a commercial vehicle in a residential area. My truck, parked in the same spot for 3 months, was suddenly an issue. The citation claimed its height exceeded 72 inches. I grabbed a tape measure, because that's what my life had come to, and found 6 identical trucks in the neighborhood. Same height, same mods, same everything. Fines issued to those owners. 0. I phoned the HOA office. Brenda's voice was sharp enough to slice steel as she claimed those residents were compliant in other ways. What ways? I pressed. Board discretion overrides written rules, she said. I've grilled cartel bosses who made more sense. I demanded written clarification of these vague, compliance standards. Her response arrived via certified mail, and I quote, "The board retains the authority to enforce selectively based on community values and resident cooperation. In other words, bow down or pay up." The sharp snap of her measuring tape became my morning wake-up call. She'd patrol at dawn, clutching her clipboard like a shield, hunting for infractions. The stench of her overpowering perfume mingled with my truck's exhaust whenever she cornered me for compliance talks. But here's what really caught my eye: a pattern emerged. Find homes all shared traits, political signs she disliked, vehicles that looked too blue collar, or owners who dared challenge her rule. The rustle of her tacky polyester suit became the sound of targeted enforcement. The 14th-day appeal window was a sham. Appeals were only heard at monthly meetings on Wednesday afternoons at 2 p.m., because apparently everyone's jobless or has a flexible schedule. Miss the meeting. Tough luck. Pay the fine. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about rules or community standards. It was about power, control, and a woman who'd turned an HOA into her personal cash machine. What Brenda didn't know was she'd just crossed someone who'd spent 15 years taking down untouchables. I was about to school her on what happens when you mess with the wrong federal agent. 2 weeks later, another orange notice appeared. This time, a $500 fine for intimidating behavior toward HOA officials. My offense: requesting documentation at a public meeting. In Brenda's kingdom, asking for receipts is apparently domestic terrorism. But she was just warming up. She unveiled the Willowbrook Safety Patrol. Neighbors in neon yellow vests wielding clipboards like they ran a police state. The scent of fresh vinyl mixed with morning coffee as these bargain bin cops began safety rounds, which somehow involved photographing my every move. Walking to my mailbox, there's Janet from 3 houses down, snapping pics of my suspicious mail retrieval. Backing out of my driveway, Bob pops up like a suburban paparazzo, documenting my erratic Driving. The constant click of smartphone cameras became my new alarm clock. I've been trained in surveillance whom counter-surveillance by pros who know their stuff. These amateurs were as subtle as a marching band. But while they played spy, I did what FBI agents do best, followed the money. Public records are like Christmas for those who know how to dig. Brenda's Willowbrook Compliance Solutions was charging the HOA $2,400 monthly for compliance services. Meanwhile, her husband Rick pocketed another $800 for security consulting. For perspective, our old management company charged $400 total. Brenda had jacked up costs by 700% overnight. The best part, neither contract went through competitive bidding. No other firms were considered, no emergency justification provided. Brenda had essentially hired herself and called it legit. I printed everything, financial records, state laws, bidding requirements, and strode into the next HOA meeting like a prosecutor entering court. The fluorescent lights hummed as I stacked my evidence binders on the table with precision. I'd like an explanation for these no-bid contracts, I said, sliding the records toward Brenda. Her nervous finger tapping sounded like a telegraph in distress. Emergency provisions allow sole source contracts, she claimed. What emergency? I asked. Mass. Patterson's cat stuck in a tree. The room snickered. Brenda's face turned crimson above her ridiculous sunglasses. That's when I dropped the bombshell. State law mandates competitive bidding for HOA contracts over $100,000, unless there's documented emergency justification, I said, placing a highlighted statute in front of her. I don't see any documentation, do you? The silence was deafening, broken only by squeaking chairs as residents leaned in. Brenda's clipboard shook in her hands. The board acts within its legal rights. She stuttered. Then producing documentation should be simple. I replied with a grin that could unnerve a shark. After the meeting, 3 residents approached me like we were forming a rebellion. Sarah from Maple Street, fined for excessive holiday decorations, 3 pumpkins. Dave from Oak Avenue cited for improper landscaping, native wildflowers. Mrs. Chen dinged for loitering, walking her dog at a normal pace. We all shared one thing. We'd questioned Brenda's authority. But Brenda wasn't done. 3 days later, I found she'd filed preliminary lien paperwork against my house. Not for the truck fine, but for the new intimidation charge I hadn't even appealed yet. That's when I realized this wasn't just a power trip or petty revenge. It was a calculated shakedown disguised as community management. The musty scent of the community center became familiar as our group met regularly. Sarah brought cookies that tasted like defiance. Dave shared his findings. Brenda's last OA gig ended with her fleeing a lawsuit. Mrs. Chen, with her meticulous notes, had documented every safety patrol encounter. The pattern was obvious. They targeted residents based on demographics and politics, not actual violations. That night, in my kitchen with fresh coffee and stacks of evidence, I felt the familiar FBI thrill of a case coming together. Brenda thought she was outsmarting a suburban nobody. She didn't know she was playing checkers against someone who dismantled criminal empires for a living. Her first mistake was assuming I'd cave like everyone else. Her second was about to cost her dearly. Brenda's reaction to public exposure, go full autocrat. She launched the Willowbrook Enforcement Division. Not just a patrol, but a full-blown operation. Her unemployed nephews, Tyler and Brad, appeared in uniforms designed to fool from a distance. Dark blue shirts, badged like patches, utility belts with handcuffs. The smell of new polyester mixed with their inflated egos. As these wannabe cops patrolled, they drove a white Ford Explorer with magnetic HOA enforcement decals visible from space. The crunch of gravel under their boots became the sound of suburban oppression as they strutted with the authority of mall security. But while they played dress up, I was doing real detective work. FBI database access revealed Brenda's rap sheet. Her previous OA role in Arizona ended in a class action lawsuit for financial mismanagement. She'd skipped town before depositions. Her real estate license was suspended twice for lying about property values. Rick's record was juicier. 3 internal affairs complaints for abusing his authority, including arresting someone for contempt of cop, which isn't a real crime. These weren't bumbling amateurs. They were seasoned grifters who'd found a new playground. Time for my counterstrike. I contacted the state's top OA attorney for a consultation. I documented every enforcement encounter with FBI-grade surveillance gear. I built a forensic financial analysis showing where HOA funds vanished, spreadsheets that would make accountants swoon. Most crucially, I treated this like a criminal enterprise, because that's what it was. Our alliance grew to 8 residents sharing horror stories. We met weekly, the scent of coffee blending with the thrill of resistance. Sarah brought cookies, Dave brought research, and Mrs. Chen brought her epic note, taking skills. That's when the enforcement division overreached. I'm walking to my mailbox, apparently a federal offense in Willowbrook, when Tyler approaches with his clipboard and fake swagger. Sir, you're being cited for jaywalking within subdivision boundaries. Jaywalking in a neighborhood with no sidewalks. Show me the crosswalk, I said, genuinely curious about their legal creativity. HOA rules override municipal traffic laws here, Brad declared, reading from a laminated card like it was the Constitution. Perfect. They were inventing laws. I need your ID, Tyler demanded, hand hovering over his fake utility belt. This is where FBI training meets suburban drama. These clowns were impersonating law enforcement, a felony in every state. But I wanted to see how far this went. You're private citizens, I said calmly. I don't owe you anything. We're certified HOA enforcement officers with full legal authority, Brad proclaimed. Then Tyler made the move that sealed their fate. He called 911 with the flair of reporting a terrorist attack. We need police backup for a non-compliant resident refusing lawful HOA enforcement. I smiled. They just summoned real cops on an FBI agent for grabbing his mail. While we waited, I called my FBI colleague in the Civil Rights Division. Hey, Mike, remember that Section 1983 case you wanted? You're gonna love this. Neighbors gathered like it was a blockbuster reality show. Mrs. Patterson brought her notorious cat. The Johnsons set up lawn chairs. Even elusive Mr. Garcia showed up to watch the chaos. Sirens mixed with nervous chatter as our suburban standoff hit peak absurdity. 2 squad cars pulled up. The first officer, a stranger, stepped out professionally. The second, Deputy Sheriff Rick Kensington, backing up his wife's goons. The conflict of interest was so glaring it was almost offensive. What's the issue? The first officer asked. Tyler puffed up. This resident refuses to comply with lawful HOA enforcement and show ID. I waited for the perfect moment, then reached for my wallet. The crowd held its breath as I pulled out my federal credentials. Marcus Donovan, FBI, I said calmly. These 2 just tried to unlawfully detain a federal agent for picking up his mail. Tyler's face was worth my 15-year government salary. Brad stumbled back like my badge might detonate. Rick went pale as snow, realizing his wife's empire had just poked the federal bear. Game over, Brenda. Real cops were here now. The badge reveal should have ended the circus. In a sane world, federal credentials would have sent those fake cops running back to whatever bargain bin academy birthed them. But Brenda had lost all grip on reality. 3 days later, actual police showed up at my door. Brenda filed a report claiming I'd physically threatened her during our mailbox encounter. Pure fiction. Rick arrived with Officer Martinez as backup, his hands trembling as he read from his notebook. He knew he was interviewing an FBI agent over his wife's vendetta. The conflict of interest was so obvious it could have had its own area code. Mrs. Kensington claims you made threatening gestures and used intimidating language, Rick said, sounding like he was reading his own obituary. Officer Martinez, I said, addressing the real cop. I assume you're noting this blatant conflict of interest. Martinez nodded grimly, smelling the lawsuit brewing. Deputy Kensington, I continued, pulling out my phone. Did your wife mention I recorded our entire encounter? I hit play, and Tyler's voice boomed. We're certified HOA enforcement officers with full legal authority. Rick's face cycled through more colors than a sunset. The audio was a slam dunk. Proof of impersonation, attempted false imprisonment, and civil rights violations. Brenda had handed me a federal case on a platter. This interview is done, Martinez said, likely saving Rick's career. We'll file a report noting conflicting accounts and recommend no charges. But I wasn't finished. As Rick slunk away, I was making calls, FBI calls. Mike, it's Marcus. That civil rights case, it's now a federal investigation. Document everything, the fake cops, the financial fraud, the abusive process. We've got Section 1983 violations, possible RICO charges. The sound of federal gears turning filled my kitchen as I detailed the pattern of harassment, selective enforcement, and corruption. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every resident Brenda had bullied. 24 hours later, my FBI colleague arrived with a forensic accountant and enough paperwork to bury a city. We spent 6 hours building a case that would make prosecutors drool. Financial records of fraud, audio of civil rights violations, and statements from 8 targeted residents. But Brenda's final blunder was yet to come. At 6:47 a.m. the next morning, I'm loading my truck when footsteps crunch across my driveway. 2 new guys in full cop-style uniforms, not Tyler and Brad, but hired security guards dressed like SWAT. Morning dew gleamed on their tactical gear as they approached with zip ties and the swagger of people who'd never read the Constitution. Sir, you're under HOA arrest for unauthorized vehicle modifications, the leader declared, like he was serving a federal warrant. This was Brenda's leap from petty tyrant to federal defendant. These weren't kids playing cop. These were licensed guards in police uniforms trying to detain an FBI agent over HOA nonsense. The smell of their cheap aftershave mixed with my coffee as I reached for my credentials, savoring the moment. Before we go further, I said calmly, I'm Special Agent Marcus Donovan, FBI. My badge caught the morning light like a beacon. You've just attempted to unlawfully detain a federal officer. Their faces drained faster than a sink. The lead guard stumbled back, dropping his zip ties with a sad clatter. We were just following orders, he mumbled, likely calculating his bail. Whose orders? I asked, though we all knew. Mrs. Kensington said we had full authority. Perfect. Brenda had just handed me the final piece of my federal case. As neighbors gathered, Mrs. Patterson with her cat, the Johnsons with coffee like it was a show. I made the call to end it all. Mike, send the team. We've got attempted unlawful detention, impersonation of federal officers, and conspiracy to violate civil rights. Brenda Kensington just earned a federal indictment. Sirens echoed through our quiet subdivision as real federal agents prepared to show Brenda what actual law enforcement looked like. Her suburban empire was about to meet the U.S. government. Game over. While feds documented Brenda's latest crimes, my attorney called with a game changer. Marcus, get to my office now. The scent of coffee and justice filled her conference room as she slid a thick document across the table. The full HOA management contract, obtained via public records. Page 47, she said, grinning like she'd struck gold. There it was, buried in Legalese Willowbrook Compliance Solutions got 15% of all fines, plus a $2,400 monthly base fee. My blood boiled. Brenda wasn't just power hungry. She was running a straight-up shakedown. Every fine, every harassment, every enforcement action lined her pockets. And there's more RICS, security consulting. Added $800 monthly, plus hourly rates for special enforcement. The conflict of interest was so glaring it could have had neon signs. Neither contract went through bidding. No board approval. No disclosure of the percentage deal. Brenda had hired herself and set her own rates, and no one bothered to read the fine print. My forensic accountant crunched the numbers. Her calculator Pratagement Company collected maybe $3,000 a year in legit fines. Parking violations, late landscaping fees, real infractions. Under Brenda, $47,000 in 8 months, a 1,500% spike. Every dollar fine put $750 in her pocket, plus RICS fees for muscle. The HOA's reserve funds told the real story, down from $89,000 to $31,000 under Brenda. Monthly costs shot up 3-4% overnight, with well $12,000 in emergency repairs, but no receipts or proof of work. The smoking gun. Brenda's business license expired 14 months ago. She was running an unlicensed company, collecting money illegally, violating state HOA laws. No bonding, no insurance, no authority to manage a lemonade stand, let alone an HOA. Tax records sealed at unreported income that would thrill IRS investigators. This goes beyond HOA abuse, my attorney said, laying out evidence like a poker hand. We're looking at mail fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion, and possible RICO violations. The scope hit like a truck. Every mailed fine was federal mail fraud. Every online payment was wire fraud. The harassment formed a racketeering enterprise under federal law. Brenda thought she was running a neighborhood. She'd built a criminal syndicate that broke more laws than most mob outfits. I called Mike immediately. We need to escalate. This isn't just civil rights. It's organized fraud with federal implications. The rustle of evidence files filled the call as he grasped the magnitude. This wasn't about my truck or neighborhood squabbles anymore. It was a criminal empire masquerading as community management, siphoning tens of thousands through fake fines. Brenda wasn't the untouchable HOA queen. She was a federal defendant in waiting. I was about to introduce her to the full force of the U.S. government. Game over, Brenda. Real law enforcement was taking charge. My attorney linked me with the state's top HOA litigation firm, experts who'd built careers toppling corrupt boards. The smell of leather and justice filled their downtown office as they took the case pro bono. Civil rights violations plus financial fraud. This is our Christmas. The senior partner grinned. The state attorney general's office was thrilled when I outlined the consumer protection angles. They'd been hunting a high-profile HOA case to flex their new enforcement unit. My FBI colleague Mike became my unofficial advisor, guiding me on federal statutes while keeping plausible deniability. Active agents can investigate their own neighborhoods, but nothing stops a citizen from getting expert advice on wire fraud laws. Evidence collection became a community mission. Our alliance grew to 31 families, each armed with documents that would make prosecutors swoon. Sarah hosted scanning parties where residents brought violation notices and horror stories. The smell of highlighters and the hum of copiers filled the community center as we built our evidence fortress. Dave's geographic analysis was a masterpiece, mapping every enforcement action to show targeted persecution. Fines clustered around homes with wrong political signs, working-class vehicles, or residents who questioned Brenda. Mrs. Chen delivered the crown jewel, 200 pages of documented encounters with timestamps, witness statements, and photos, an accidental FBI-grade surveillance file. My contribution: financial forensics tracing every stolen dollar, spreadsheets linking complaints to retaliation fines, and a timeline proving systematic abuse for profit. But Brenda fought back. Poorly. She hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on me, hoping to discredit me. When the P found my FBI background via public records, that call must have been awkward. Mrs. Kensington, you want me to investigate a federal agent? You sure? Brenda's response: a 3-day document, shredding frenzy. Her home office sounded like a woodchipper convention as she destroyed evidence like a mob accountant facing a raid. She spread rumors that I was a rogue federal agent under investigation. Anonymous flyers warned of federal surveillance, targeting innocent families. The desperation was palpable. Rick claimed his $800 monthly security consulting was unpaid volunteer work. Conveniently, after feds started sniffing around, our war room met every Tuesday in the community center. Coffee and justice in the air as residents honed their testimony. Transportation was arranged for elderly witnesses. Volunteers coordinated crowd control for what promised to be a historic HOA meeting, and investigative reporter Jennifer Walsh fact-checked our evidence mountain. In 20 years of journalism, I've never seen corruption this obvious or this sloppy, she said, shaking her head. Social media warfare escalated. Fake HOA police trended locally. Ring footage of enforcement encounters went viral. Brenda's supporters shrank to her nephews and whoever was still cashing her checks. Preparations turned military. Grade sound systems tested for courtroom clarity, overflow viewing set up, live streaming arranged for remote witnesses, and evidence boards designed for maximum impact. Mike attended as a concerned citizen to keep federal eyes on the proceedings. The Attorney General's rep confirmed attendance, and the police chief was briefed to avoid jurisdictional mix-ups when arrests began. 3 TV stations, 2 newspapers, and Jennifer's documentary crew locked in live coverage. Brenda's downfall would be televised. The cease and desist letter to the Enforcement Division cited specific federal statutes, warning of personal liability for continued impersonation. Tyler and Brad got copies via certified mail, creating a federal evidence trail. Residents rehearsed board removal procedures to ensure legal compliance, leaving Brenda no procedural loopholes. As day neared, the smell of printer ink filled homes as residents prepared evidence packets. Staplers clicked like typewriters writing Brenda's obituary. Her empire faced federal law, state consumer protection, investigative journalism, and furious residents armed with facts. The countdown to justice was on, and Brenda was about to learn what happens when amateurs challenge professional investigators. Brenda's response to resistance: full on psychological warfare. She tried canceling the special meeting, citing security threats from militant residents. Her certified letter reeked of desperation and bad legal advice, claiming federal intimidation and potential violence. Rich, considering her fake police force. When the board voted to proceed, she hired real security guards to maintain order. Ironic, given her fake guards caused the chaos. Her propaganda blitz was next level. Anonymous flyers appeared, warning of dangerous federal surveillance, and claiming I was under FBI investigation. The cheap paper smelled of panic as neighbors found these fictional pamphlets. Phone calls targeted elderly residents, urging them to skip the dangerous meeting where feds might arrest innocents. Brenda was running a disinformation campaign against an FBI agent investigating her. Then came sabotage. 2 nights before the meeting, my mailbox was trashed, crowbar marks, broken lock, contents strewn across my lawn. The smell of metal shavings mixed with dew as I photographed the evidence. Anonymous calls hit our group. Sarah was warned about feds watching her kids. Dave was told his job was at risk, and Mrs. Chen got immigration threats despite being a citizen for 30 years. While Brenda played spy, I coordinated with real law enforcement. Police Chief Rodriguez reviewed the intimidation evidence, his face darkening. This stops now, he said, assigning patrols to protect targeted residents. Deputy Kensington's involvement is a departmental integrity issue. The FBI's Civil Rights Division opened a preliminary probe based on the harassment patterns. Mike arrived with a forensic accountant and digital evidence specialist, formally documenting federal interest. The Attorney General's office sent their consumer protection chief with subpoena power. This was no longer a neighborhood spat, it was a state-level criminal case. Brenda's dumbest move came 3 days before the meeting. She cornered me in a grocery store parking lot, glancing around like a low-rent drug dealer. Her perfume and nervous sweat assaulted my senses as she made her sophisticated offer. Marcus, we can settle this quietly. She whispered, checking over her shoulder. I'll waive your fines, and we call this a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. She called fraud and fake cops a misunderstanding. What about the other residents? I asked, activating my recording app. Rick can make issues vanish, she said with a wink. Tickets, permits, inspections. We help those who help us. Jackpot. She just confessed to bribery, conspiracy, and abuse of power by the frozen foods. The recording was crystal clear, capturing every word of corruption. Mike nearly choked on his coffee when I played it. She said make problems disappear in a grocery store. He gasped. Is she auditioning for a mafia flick? The community's response was epic. Meeting attendance projections hit 400 residents. The high school auditorium was booked for overflow. Local businesses donated snacks. Revolutions need fuel. Carpools were set up for scared elderly residents. Live streaming was arranged for those too nervous to attend. Mrs. Chen's 47-page chronicle of Brenda's crimes read like a federal indictment. Sarah prepared media evidence packets. Dave's visual presentations made the corruption undeniable. Tension was thick. Neighbors whispered in stores. Supportive notes appeared in mailboxes. Even the mail carrier asked if I needed extra security. Brenda's last-ditch effort was scheduling a competing emergency dissolution meeting the same evening, hoping to disband the HOA before her removal. Only 12 loyalists got notice, but court injunctions are beautiful with good lawyers. Our attorney secured a restraining order blocking asset changes. Brenda was trapped in a legal cage of her own making, facing federal probes, state charges, and 400 angry neighbors. Her empire's collapse was music to my ears. With 24 hours to go, Brenda made her final, desperate move: steal everything and run. She called an emergency dissolution meeting at 2 p.m. the same day as our showdown, notifying only 12 allies. Tyler, Brad, and her remaining check cashers. Her plan: dissolve the HOA, pocket $60,000 in administrative costs, and vanish. Rick arranged police protection for the meeting, despite the glaring conflict of interest. His department would guard while his wife looted the treasury. The corruption was billboard-worthy. Brenda's smear campaign hit peak lunacy. Anonymous social media posts warned of federal surveillance and harassment. Someone spray-painted "Federal Snitch" on the community center. The smell of fresh paint and desperation lingered as volunteers scrubbed it clean. Then came the frame job. 3 sprinkler heads in the common area were smashed with evidence, pointing to my truck's tire tracks. Anonymous tips claimed witnesses saw me vandalizing property. Rick opened an investigation anyway. While Brenda played amateur crook, I orchestrated a federal response for the history books. Court injunctions froze all HOA assets. Every account, transfer, and check locked tight. FBI surveillance teams posed as residents. Mike brought a cable repair van with recording gear to capture Brenda's conspiracy. The Attorney General's office prepped arrest warrants for any unauthorized asset grabs. Federal banking authorities flagged OA accounts for suspicious activity. Any transfer would trigger alerts and freezes. My PI contact delivered the knockout. Brenda had opened offshore Cayman Islands accounts to flee with stolen funds, complete with routing numbers and schedules. She thought she was playing checkers against suburbanites. She was playing chess against feds. Community prep was surgical. 450 residents confirmed for our 7 p.m. showdown, overflow seating at 3 locations, 7 news outlets credentialed. Mrs. Chen organized 37 resident testimonies on harassment, fraud, and civil rights violations, all notarized. Sarah's evidence packets and dejules made the corruption undeniable. Printers hummed, highlighters reeked, and anticipation filled homes as residents finalized documents. At 2 p.m., Brenda's illegal dissolution meeting convened in the community center's back room. FBI surveillance recorded her every word as she tried to commit felony theft. We need to distribute funds now, she told her 12 co-conspirators. Unaware feds were listening through the walls. The nervous shuffling of papers mixed with whispers as her allies realized they were part of multiple felonies. Even Tyler looked uneasy as Brenda outlined wiring 60 other rows into personal accounts. What about the other residents? Someone asked. They'll be too busy fighting the dissolution, Brenda said, clueless about the feds outside. Rick guarded the door, photographed by FBI teams documenting his role in the conspiracy. His career ended in real time. When Brenda tried the wire transfers, court-ordered freezes kicked in. Banks alerted federal authorities as systems blocked every transaction. The trap was sprung, evidence secured, feds in place, media ready. As evening hit, 450 residents packed the community center for the most epic HOA meeting ever. Brenda and Rick were about to learn what happens when amateurs take on professional law enforcement. The public reckoning was here. The community center was a spectacle of suburban justice. 450 residents crammed in, with overflow watching live feeds from 3 spots. Nervous sweat mixed with coffee and anticipation as our quiet neighborhood became a media circus. TV cameras lined the walls like a firing squad, their red lights casting a glow over the most dramatic HOA meeting ever. Jennifer Walsh and her investigative team nabbed front row seats, eager for their Pulitzer-worthy scoop. State Representative Martinez opened with congressional gravitas. Willowbrook's corruption threatens every homeowner in our state. The applause shook the building. Brenda huddled in the back with Tyler, Brad, and Rick, looking like defendants at their own trial. Her clipboard was gone, likely seized as evidence. When my turn came, I approached the podium with 3 binders of federal-grade investigation. The room went silent except for camera clicks and held breaths. Neighbors. I began, opening a binder with flair. This isn't just HA abuse. It's a criminal syndicate that impress mob bosses. I revealed a flowchart showing how fines fed Brenda's bank account. The collective gasp hit like a wave as residents saw the theft's scope. 15% of every fine went to Brenda's pocket. I said, watching her pale. She didn't ramp up enforcement for safety. She did it for cash. I exposed Rick's fees, the fake cop uniforms, and the intimidation. The bombshell. Playing the grocery store recording. Brenda's voice boomed. Rick can make problems disappear. Tickets, permits, inspections. We help those who help us. The room erupted like a volcano, shouts for justice, calls for arrests, and elderly ladies cursing like sailors. Mrs. Patterson's cat hissed, sensing the rage. Then FBI Agent Mike Torres stood, badge gleaming. Based on this evidence and our investigation, we're filing charges against the Kensingtons for conspiracy, wire fraud, civil rights violations, and running a criminal enterprise. The validation was electric. An FBI agent confirming our nightmare was a federal crime. Cheers, whistles, and vindication roared. But Brenda wasn't done imploding. She shoved through the crowd, grabbing the mic like a madwoman. This is a federal witch hunt, she shrieked, voice breaking. Marcus Donovan is a rogue agent abusing power for revenge. The room froze, 450 people waiting for my reply. I stood slowly, raised my credentials, and let every camera catch them. Brenda, I said, calm as a predator, I'm not a rogue agent. I paused for effect. I'm just an FBI agent who's damn good at his job. And you got caught by someone who dismantles people like you for a living. The room exploded with pent-up rage finding release. Standing ovations, cheers, window, rattling applause, and the sweet sound of Brenda's public humiliation. Even news crews grinned as they captured her meltdown. Camera flashes lit up like fireworks as residents documented justice in Willowbrook. The Attorney General's rep announced state charges within 48 hours. This is the largest OA fraud case in state history. The votes were theatrical. Brenda's removal passed 447-3, her own mother-in-law voting against her. The asset recovery lawsuit motion was unanimous, except for her allies' abstentions. Federal agents served warrants on stage, handcuffs clicking as cameras rolled. Tyler and Brad were let out, dazed, wondering how playing cop led to federal charges. As residents thanked me, victory mingled with evening air through open doors. Mrs. Chen teared up, Mrs. Patterson hugged me fiercely, and Mr. Garcia shook my hand. Justice echoed through our subdivision as federal vehicles hauled away the criminals who terrorized us. Game over, Brenda. Real law enforcement had arrived. 6 months later, justice was sweeter than Mrs. Chen's victory cookies. Brenda pleaded guilty to federal mail fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy to avoid a televised jury trial. 18 months in prison, $67,000 in restitution from her offshore accounts. Her management license was permanently revoked, and she's banned from HOA roles for life. Rick lost his deputy job and faces state charges for abuse of authority. His career ended like a dumpster fire, his pension frozen pending restitution. Tyler and Brad got probation and community service for impersonating officers, plus lifetime bans from security work. They're now selling mattresses, fitting for dreamland dwellers. The real win was our community's transformation. The new board, elected unanimously, cut fees to $25 a month, enough for real maintenance, not criminal schemes. We hired a legit management company through proper bidding, with bonding, insurance, and transparent finances that make accountants cry tears of joy. Resident satisfaction hit 94%, a total reversal from Brenda's terror. Property values rose 12% as word spread about our corruption-free zone. Buyers prefer neighborhoods without fake cop arrests. The Willowbrook Transparency Foundation, funded by recovered money, has helped 23 neighborhoods fight HOA abuse, creating a 3-state justice network. Our case sparked laws in 5 states mandating competitive bidding for OA contracts and banning percentage-based fines. I testified for the Homeowner Protection Act, strengthening resident rights nationwide. The National HOA Association adopted our anti-corruption guidelines, and my story is now required reading for community management certifications. Our drama is taught in grad school governance courses. Personally, I found purpose. Elected to the HO board, I discovered FBI financial crime skills are perfect for reviewing landscaping contracts and ensuring transparency. Who knew federal investigation experience made me the go-to budget guy? Our templates, evidence checklists, organizing guides, legal resources have been downloaded 75,001 plus times via consumer protection agencies. Chen's documentation system is the gold standard for fighting HOA abuse. Our annual Justice Day draws nearly 1,000 people with BBQ music and ceremonial shredding of old violation notices. The smell of burgers and kids' laughter has replaced the tension. A scholarship fund supports students studying law and public administration, teaching the next generation to fight corruption with knowledge and evidence. National attention brought perks, features on investigative shows, documentaries, and a Lifetime movie that somehow softened Brenda's villainy. 6 FBI field offices requested our investigation template. The best moment. Last week, Sarah said 3 nearby subdivisions facing corrupt boards want the Willowbrook FBI guy to help. This isn't just about one neighborhood. It's about empowering communities to topple petty tyrants who think HOAs are personal fiefdoms. My phone rings weekly with residents facing similar fights. Suburban corruption is an epidemic, and our story is the blueprint for fighting back. The smell of coffee and Saturday peace now fills our streets, not fear. Kids play where fake cops once prowled. Neighbors chat without worrying about fines. Share your HOA horror stories below. Let's build a database to help communities spot and stop abuse before it turns criminal. Subscribe for more justice content, because HOA tyrants keep picking fights with people who know their rights. Knowledge is power, documentation wins cases, and organized communities can crush any corrupt official dumb enough to test them. Justice isn't just punishment. It's building better neighborhoods where good people can live free